بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Moving on with our lessons, introducing the Arabic language, we've covered the qawl chart so far. And in the chart, we explained to you that qawl is either a mufrad, which is a single word, or a murakkab, which is a compound structure. Compound structures we're going to deal with later, bi'idhnillah. Then under single word, we told you that a single word in the Arabic language will either be an ism, fi'al, or harf. And we explained each one of these to you. An ism is a word that gives a meaning in itself without being attached to a tense. A fi'al is a word that gives a meaning in itself whilst being attached to a tense, like a verb in the English language. And a harf is a word that gives a meaning in something else. Now we're going to dive into the ism into quite a bit of detail. So this will perhaps be the most detailed lesson we've come across so far. And you're also going to be um, exposed to a lot of words in the Arabic language. So just to give some, I guess, to preempt the method in which I want you to study this lesson. Number one, the most important thing is the concept. The concept is fairly simple. The concepts I'm going to explain to you right now are fairly simple. They're not difficult concepts. Number one. Number two, retaining the concept is where you'll have a degree of difficulty. So when it comes to retaining the concept, number one, think about it, try writing it down, and then application. In the next lesson, the entire next lesson, we're going to apply the concept bi'idhnillah to help you retain it. And likewise, anytime you have a difficult lesson, the upcoming lesson will actually be an application of that lesson in order to make it easier for you to retain. So right now we're going to dive into the ism, different types of asma. After diving into the ism, in order to retain this information, we're going to apply this. Now, obviously, as I'm teaching you, I will be applying this as well. As I'm teaching you in this lesson, I'll be applying this to a high degree. And I want you to follow along as I apply it. If you're watching a recording, try pausing the video and applying it yourself. Not right from the beginning. In the beginning, let me help you out a bit. But later on, you can do this yourself, bi'idhnillah, halfway through the lesson. If I ask you, for instance, to provide the supposed plural or feminine version of a word, pause the video, think about it, and apply it yourself. Number one. Or number three now. Number four, in terms of vocab, I have added a word back to the end of this lesson on account of the fact that we have quite a bit of vocabulary in this word. So in week one, you covered about 5 words. And week two, I'd assume you're going to be covering about 20 or so words. And again, because you're applying these words again and again, it's easier to retain. But you have to make sure that if your vocabulary is weak, you actually put some time aside to memorize. Now, again, the way we've put the course out is that every time a word is brought up, it's used again. So you're able to see that word being used again and again, and hence you're able to retain that word. But at the end of every lesson, just to be safe, try to go over the words that have been taught in the lesson and get a general idea of the meaning. And if need be, memorize the words as well. So by the end of every week, whatever words we have in the word bank, they need to be memorized. Otherwise, by the time you finish the first module, you'll have a list of 100 plus words, and it'll be very difficult for you to memorize them. And again, we've made it easy by applying these words and using these words again and again. Lakin, if there's a need to memorize, make sure you take some time to memorize. So that's 4 points over there. Number one, concepts are simple. Number two, concepts need to be applied. We will apply them bi'idhnillah. Number three, try applying them yourself. And number four, make sure that you have a degree of familiarity with the words. Now, moving right into the ism. So ism indicates a meaning in itself whilst being attached or without being attached to a tense. In English, this is not just a noun. I mentioned previously that oftentimes we misunderstand an ism to only be a noun or to be restricted to a noun. But the reality is in English, this is not simply a noun, it's more than a noun. And the way to understand it is very simple. Let's look at, in English, let's look at nouns and pronouns. What's a noun? A person, place, or thing, right? So Muhammad, Canada, Medina, Al-Munawwara, for instance, cat, pen. These are all things. So these are all nouns, person, place, or thing. A pronoun is something that comes in place of a noun. So, for instance, if I was speaking and I would say that Muhammad came home, Muhammad sat in the living room, Muhammad ate cereal and milk, Muhammad stood up, Muhammad helped his mom. You're not going to say Muhammad again and again and again. Or, for instance, if you have a different name like Zubair, Zubair, you're not going to say Zubair again and again and again. Rather, you say Zubair came home, he stood up, he sat down. So notice how Zubair is the noun, it's the name of a person, but we have a word that's coming in place of it. Zubair came home, he. So he is referring back to Zubair. He sat in the living room, he ate cereal, He helped his mom. So a pronoun is a word that comes in place of a noun. Now, obviously, if a noun is an ism, on account of the fact that it gives a meaning in itself without being attached to a tense, then a pronoun which comes in place of a noun will also be an ism, because a pronoun also gives a meaning within itself without being attached to a tense. Likewise, adjectives, which are words that are used to describe nouns, like for example, fast person, um, big man. So big, fast, all right, swift. These are adjectives. These are also nouns as well as adverbs. The idea is the definition. We want you to understand the definition of the ism. Once you've understood the definition of the ism, it'll be easier for you to understand what English words fall under an ism, even if you don't know what a noun is, even if you don't know what a pronoun is, even if you don't know what an adjective or an adverb is. But if you don't understand the definition of a noun, of an ism, afwan, then you'll be able to understand all the words in the English and Arabic language that fall under the ism. All right. Now, the ism, as we mentioned to you previously, we have multiple perspectives. And in this lesson, we're going to look at three perspectives of the ism. What does it mean to have multiple perspectives? What this essentially means is that we can classify the ism in different ways. So let's look at gender. Let's look at gender. In English, words don't have gender, right? So like you don't have like a feminine desk versus a masculine desk, or you don't have a feminine pill versus a masculine pill, or for instance, you don't have, for example, um, feminine fast which is used for females, as opposed to fast, which is used for males. Fast, as in the adjective, fast man. Right? We don't have this in English. We don't have a differentiation between genders in words. But in the Arabic language, we have genders. So you have masculine words and you have feminine words. And the reason this is important because a lot of rules come back to this. Like in certain scenarios, the genders have to match. In other scenarios, the genders must not match. So, since this is the case, you have to ensure that you know how to differentiate between genders in the English and the Arabic language, F1. All right. In English, we have amount. We have different amounts. We have singular in English and we have plural. Arabic, we also have amounts. However, in Arabic, we have singular and then we have dual. So we don't jump straight to plural. We have singular, then we have dual, and then finally we have plural. Keep this in mind. In English, we have amounts, singular and plural, and two falls under plural. But in Arabic, we actually have a separate category for duals. And finally, definiteness. What that essentially means is that in Arabic, a word can either be definite, in which case it's specific, it refers to a specific person, a specific house, a specific car, or it can be indefinite, in which case it's not specific, it can refer to any random person, any random house, any random car. Now we can also convey these meanings in English. That in English we use the word the, the, to convey this meaning, as we'll come across soon bi'idhnillah. In Arabic we have a different method to convey this meaning. So based on how we're looking at an ism, are we looking at it from the perspective of it being definite versus indefinite? In this case, the ism will classify into what we call ma'rifah, which it means definite, and nakira, which means indefinite. Are we looking at either from the perspective of gender, right? Is the ism masculine, in which case we would call it mudhakkar, or is it feminine, in which case we would call it mu'annath? All right, mudhakkar versus mu'annath, ma'rifah versus nakira. All right, and then finally, is the ism singular, plural, or dual? If it's singular, we'd call it mufrad. Now, notice over here, mufrad is being reused. You see that? Mufrad can mean a single word, and mufrad can also mean singular as opposed to dual, which is muthanna. So, for instance, dual would be two people, two, all right, and singular is one. When you use mufrad under amount, it just means singular as opposed to dual. When you use mufrad in the qawl chart, it means a single word. That single word itself can be plural, it can be singular, it can be dual, it can be an ism, it can be a fi'l, it can be a harf. All right. So this mufrad is more broad than the second usage of mufrad. And if you don't understand that, it's not an issue. This is an extra benefit. And we're going to cover this in much more detail later on. Just keep in mind that the ism can either have an amount. That amount can either be a mufrad, a muthanna, which is dual, or an ism can also be jam', which is plural. All right. So based on how we're looking at the ism, are we looking from the perspective of gender? We break it up into mudhakkar and mu'annath. Are we looking at it from the perspective of amount? We break it up into mufrad singular, muthanna dual, and jama' plural. Are we looking at it from the perspective of definiteness versus indefiniteness? We break it up into ma'rifa and nakira. And obviously this is just an overview. We're going to understand this in detail right now, bi'idhnillah. One thing to keep in mind is that there's no contradiction. There is no contradiction between a word uh, being definite and having a specific gender, or the word having a gender like mudhakkar or mu'annath and having an amount. So these are different categories. A word can be mufrad, singular, it can be mudhakkar, and it can also be ma'rifah, definite. At the same time, a word can be singular, it can also be mu'annath, and it can be nakira. So because there's different categories, these categories can gather together. What cannot happen, what cannot happen is for a word at the same time to be masculine and feminine. For a word at the same time to be definite and indefinite. This cannot happen. For a word at the same time to be singular and dual, or dual and plural. This cannot happen. Understood? So when we have different categories, these categories can gather together. The different types in these categories, they cannot gather together. And this is how we'll understand this for now. So once again, to recap, in English, words have different types. You have different amounts. You have definiteness. You have indefiniteness. In Arabic as well, the ism, all right, which indicates a meaning in itself without being attached to a meaning, it also has different classifications. So if you're looking at the ism from the perspective of definiteness, then it has two types. Either it's ma'rifa, which is definite, or it's nakira, which is indefinite. Now, if you can't memorize the Arabic names, do not worry. Do not worry in the least. Learn the English names. Remember, I said focus on the concept. If you can't memorize the Arabic names, it's not an issue. Learn the English names. The ism can either be definite or indefinite. Ma'rifa or nakira. The ism can either be mudhakkar, masculine, or mu'annath, feminine. The ism can either be based on amount, mufrad, singular, muthanna, dual, or jama', plural. Now let's dive into all of this, bi'idhnillah. All right. Perspective one is in terms of definiteness versus indefiniteness. A word can either be general, a man is in a house. Now, this can be any man, and it can be any house. How do you say man in the Arabic language? Rajul. How do you say man in the Arabic language? Rajul. How do you say house in the Arabic language? Bait. It can be any man, it can be any house. Let's just write that down. Rajulun equals a man. House equals baytun. All right. If you want to look back at some of the vocabulary from the previous lesson, talibun means a student. Talibun can be any student. It can be any one of you students in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It can be any student. Okay, as opposed to the man. Because the is now specific. Is in the house. House is now specific. How did we make it specific? In English, we make a word specific by adding the, this word. You add this word to the beginning of a noun, you can make it specific. So now it's not just any man, it's the man or the man. It's not just any house, it's the house. It's not just any student, it's the student. It's referring to a very specific person, all right, or place or thing. So in order to make an ism specific, we add on. In English, we add on the. Okay. In Arabic, we don't add on the. We don't have a specific separate a word that's written separately. We add on an alif lam. We add on an alif lam. So rajulun meant a man. Ar-rajulu. Ar-rajulu would mean the man. Baytun meant a house. Al. Add on alif lam. What do we add on? Alif lam would mean the house. Okay. Talibun, for instance, meant a student. How do we say the student? We add on alif lam. That alif lam has a power. What's the power of the alif lam? It specifies the ism it's attached to. So talibun means a student. At-talibu means the student. Now notice over here, when you add on alif lam has a power in the sense that it specifies the meaning. But it also has a second power. And that second power is that alif lam remove the tanween. Notice how talibun, a student, is ending in two harakat. Talibun, right? Ba dhammatain bun, double haraka. When you add an alif lam, you have to remove one of these harakat. Understood. So by adding on alif lam to the beginning of a word, number one, you specify the word. So now it's no longer a student, it's the student. But number two, in terms of reading, that double haraka at the end, the second haraka needs to be removed. And that's why you'll notice we had rajulun means a man. When I added on the alif lam, what did I do with the dhammatain at the end? I dropped it. I dropped the second haraka. I said ar-rajulu. Notice how I did not say ar-rajulun. I dropped the second haraka. Al-baytu. Baytun means a house. We add an alif lam, it means the house. But it's not just the house. It's not just a change in the meaning level. We also drop the second haraka. So by adding on alif lam, you can remove the second haraka. In fact, you have to remove the second haraka at the end of the word. All right. So baytun a house, al-baytu the house. Notice how the haraka has been dropped. Rajulun a man, ar-rajulu the man. Notice how the haraka has been dropped. Now, to recap, what do we do when we add an alif lam? Number one, the alif lam specifies. The alif lam specifies the upcoming words. So you say baytun a man, al-baytu the, baytun a house, al-baytu the house. Number two, when alif lam enter on a word, the double haraka, un and in. So why are we saying un and in? Whether it's fathatain, double fatha, whether it's dhammatain, double dhamma, whether it's kasratain, double kasra, they need to go. Only one haraka will remain. So rajulan turns into ar-rajula. Rajulun turns into ar-rajulu. And rajulin turns into ar-rajuli. So this is the special power, the second special power of the alif lam. On the meaning level, it specifies the word. And in terms of pronunciation, the second haraka needs to go. All right. Now, when an alif lam is on a word, it becomes definite. What do we call a definite word in the English, in the Arabic language? We call it ma'rifa. Ma'rifa. What do we call a word that's not definite? An indefinite word? We call it nakira. So let's apply this. Baytun, a house. This word currently is, na'am, nakira. The word currently is nakira. It's indefinite. It can refer to any house. When you want to specify it, what do we do? What do we do? We add on the alif lam. When we add on the alif lam, number one, on the meaning level, a becomes the, it becomes specified. And number two, the second haraka is dropped off. Al-baytu means the house, and hence this is ma'rifa. Specific. Now apply the exact same concept to rajulun and ar-rajulu. All right, you take rajulun, which means a man. Therefore, this is nakira. We add an alif lam, okay, to make it specific. So therefore, translation-wise, we add on the, because now alif lam is specified the upcoming word ar-raju, and you cannot say ar-rajulun, because the alif lam will drop off the second haraka. It will remove the tanween. Now it becomes ar-rajulu. And in Arabic, we call this a ma'rifa word. Why is it ma'rifa? Because it is specific. All right, nakira is general, ma'rifa is specific. Now let's apply this, all right, to a few words we've learned previously. Make the following word specific by adding alif lam and translate accordingly. So over here, I've already given you the translation of these words, but you should know the translation. You should know the translation of qalamun, talibun, and ilmun. Qalamun means a pen, talibun means a student, and ilmun means knowledge. Why should you know the translation? Because we covered this previously. Qalamun is a pen. So this currently is nakira. I want to make this ma'rifa. I want to make a pen, any pen, into the pen, a very specific pen. So how do I do this? Number one, I have to add on alif lam. Once I've added on alif lam, now I add on the remaining part of the word. Al qala mu. Notice how in the ending I dropped off the tanween. Why did I drop off the tanween? Because once you add alif lam, the tanween needs to go. They cannot be brought together. Alif lam is there, the tanween needs to go. Now, meaning wise, a pen turns into the pen. Notice how it became specific. All right, and that's why it's a ma'rifa word. Talibun means a student. What do? You add on alif lam. At-ta li. Don't say bun, because you have to drop the haraka. At-talibu. Now whether it's a fathatain, at-taliba, taliban becomes at-taliba, or kasratain, talibin becomes at-talibi, or dhammatain, talibun becomes at-talibu, is irrelevant. The point is the second haraka needs to go. Okay? This means the student. There's no longer any student. It's a very specific student. And one point I'll mention over here, you're going to notice that when we added on alif lam to the word starting with qaf, we pronounced the lam. We said al qalamu. Al qalamu. But when we added on alif lam to the word starting with a ta, we did not pronounce the lam. Notice how we do tashdid. We put tashdid in the ta instead. Instead of saying al talibu, we say at talibu. Instead of saying al talibu, we say at talibu. That's because it's difficult to say al talibu. It is difficult to say al talibu. But this you don't need to actually learn the rule behind this. It's just a matter of being able to read. Generally speaking, the Arabic language, they will put the tashdid for you. So you'll know when it's al versus at-talibu. Over here, this is an example when you don't pronounce the lam, alif lam, when it enters upon a ta. You don't say al-talibu, because try saying it's difficult, isn't it? As opposed to al-qalamu. Rather, you say at-talibu. Okay, finally, we have ilmun, which means knowledge. Now, notice how when it came to student and pen, in the English language, we had something to indicate that it was general. When it came to al-qalam with the pen, in the English language, we had a word to indicate it was specific. But ilmun, which is an ism, it indicates a meaning in itself without being attached to a tense, is translated as knowledge. We don't say a knowledge. You would not say a knowledge. But in the Arabic language, ilmun can be nakira. Notice how ilmun over here refers to any type of knowledge of anything that's nakira. And al-ilmu, al, add an alif lam. What happens when you add an alif lam? The word becomes specific and the tanween drops. So it's not al-ilmun, it's al-ilmu. Now we're not going to say the knowledge. We're not going to say the knowledge because English doesn't work like this. But in Arabic, you realize that al-ilmu is ma'rifah, it's specific, whereas ilmun is nakira. There's no alif lam over there. Okay, with this, we've covered nakira, general words, versus ma'rifah, specific words. Okay, now let's move on to the second perspective. So we've covered ma'rifah and nakira now, definiteness versus indefiniteness. Now let's move on to gender. What is the gender of words in the English language? We told you previously that in English language you don't have genders. Generally speaking, words don't have genders. The Arabic language is different. In the Arabic language, words can have genders. Now, the rule here is the default is that words are masculine. So if you come across any random word, the default is that the rule is, or the word is masculine. Unless that word has a feminine meaning. What does feminine meaning mean? By nature is feminine. So ummun means mother. Now that obviously by nature is a female. Bintun means daughter. Once again, by nature, that will be a feminine word. It cannot be a masculine word because by nature the word is feminine. The second method to make a word feminine, to understand that a word is feminine and to recognize a feminine word, is that at the end of that word, you have a round ta. Now, pay attention. You have not just a normal ta, but you have a round ta. A round ta looks like, you can see in front of you, and the word nasira tun, this ta over here, the ta when you stop on it is pronounced as a ha. Nasira tun, that's a round ta as opposed to a long ta. We'll show you why this matters later on bi'idhnillah. Okay. So nasirun in the English language means helper. But in English, when you say helper, whether it's a female or a male, you just say helper. In Arabic, that's not the case. If it's a male, we say nasirun. Now, I told you the default in the Arabic language is the word will be masculine. So nasirun is a masculine word because the default in the Arabic language is that the word will be masculine. However, if I want to make nasirun feminine, how do I make it feminine? It's very simple. I add on a round ta to the end. Once I add on a round ta, nasirun becomes nasiratun. Notice how we added on that round ta. Nasirun becomes nasiratun. And therefore, if you have a sister who's helping, you'd call her nasiratun. You wouldn't call her nasirun. In English, it's helper and helper. But in Arabic, for a male, a masculine who's helping, we call him nasirun. For a female who's helping, we call her nasiratun with the round ta at the ending. So if you have a round ta at the end of the word, that word is feminine. Okay. Now let me ask you, just to start thinking a bit, the word we covered in the previous lesson or the previous slide, baytun. Is that a masculine word or a feminine word? So think about it. Try to answer. The word baytun is a masculine or feminine? The answer is the word baytun is masculine. Why is it masculine? The reason it's masculine is because even though there's a ta at the end, is that a round ta? The answer is no, it's a long ta. So this long ta is not a sign of a word being feminine. What's a sign of a word being feminine is very specific. It's a round ta. If you don't have a round ta at the end of the word, then that's not a sign of femininity. All right. So baytun is, according to the default, a masculine word. Again, this is all applicable when the word itself by nature is not feminine. Ummun, bintun, these by nature are feminine words. Okay. Therefore, you cannot say that ummun doesn't have a round ta, therefore it's masculine. No. By nature it's feminine. Bintun doesn't have a round ta, therefore it's masculine is incorrect because by nature it is feminine. If you have a word that by nature is not feminine, now in order to make it feminine, you have to add on a round ta. So now let's apply this to a few words. Nasihan. I already told you what nasih means in a previous lesson. To think back, think about it. What does nasihun mean? Nasihun means advisor. Nasihun means advisor. Okay. But again, in English, we would use advisor for a male and a female. Whereas in Arabic, that's not the case. Nasihan means advisor, male. Now, whether that's nasihun, nasihin, it still means advisor. Nasihatan. Notice how we add on a round ta to the ending. It means advisor, but now it's a female advisor. Okay? At-tawili. At-tawili means tall. Okay, now notice this is a good example because in English, we say tall. Can you determine in English if tall is specific or if tall is general? The answer is no. But in Arabic, we can say, we're not saying the tall specifically, we were adding on an alif lam. Alif lam makes it specific. Tawili is not general. It's not any random tall. It's referring to a specific person who's tall. So notice over here how in the Arabic language, we can make this word specific by adding on alif lam. Whereas in English, you can't really do that. You just say tall. You can't say a tall or the tall. It's just tall. Okay, number two, in terms of gender, tall can be used for males and females. But in the Arabic language, that's not the case. If you say at-tawilu or at-tawila or at-tawili, for instance, all right, it refers to a masculine who's tall. If you want to refer to a specific female who's tall, then you'd have to add on a round ta and you say at-tawilati. All right. So you'll notice once again, how do we make the word feminine? By adding on a round ta. Baridun means cold. Baridun means cold. All right. How do you make your word feminine? How do you make the word baridun feminine? We add on a round ta, and therefore baridun becomes naam baridatun. Notice how we added on a round ta at the end, and hence it became feminine. Al-ammu. Al-ammu refers to your uncle, but it's the uncle from the father's side. So that's called a paternal uncle, which basically means that your father's brother. Al-ammu is your father's brother. Notice it's masculine, so it's referring to the father's brother because it's masculine. Why is it masculine? Default in the Arabic language is that a word is masculine. If you want to make it feminine, we add on a round ta. There's no round ta over there, it's masculine. So this refers to the paternal uncle, the father's brother. If you want to refer to the father's sister, what do? We add on a round ta. Al-am ma tu. Now notice how this has become specific. It's the father's sister. It's specific because alif lam, but it's feminine now. It's no longer the father's brother. It's the father's sister. So al-ammu means the paternal uncle. Al-ammatu means the paternal aunt. Tamam? We've practiced ma'rifa nakira, and we've also practiced mudhakkar, which is a masculine word. Mudhakkar is a masculine word. And we've also practiced mu'annath, which is the feminine word. Mudhakkar, masculine. Mu'annath, feminine. All right. The third perspective is in terms of amount. So in Arabic, in English, we have singular words and we have plural words in English, right? And generally speaking, if you want to make a word plural in English, you add on a S. Generally speaking, we have other rules as well in English. In Arabic, we have singular, dual, plural. Singular words, what you've been coming across so far. Baytun, a house is only one house. Qalabun, a pen. طالب, a student. Okay, al-ammu, the paternal uncle. Al-ammatu, the paternal aunt. It's still one. If you want to make a word dual in Arabic, all you do is add on an alif noon at the end. An alif noon and the second noon has a kasra. Alif noon. It's very simple. Rajulun means a man. Rajulani means two men. Baytun means a house. Baytani means two houses. Okay? We can even do this with specific words. So al-qalamu means the pen. It's specific because the alif lam is ma'rifah. Al-qalamani means the two pens. We can do feminine words as well. Al-ammatu means the paternal aunt. Okay? Notice the and its aunt is female. Al-ammatu, the paternal aunt. If I want to dualize this, I just add on alif noon to the end. Al-amma tani. Very simple and very easy. At-tawilatu means the tall female. If I want to dualize it, say it with me. At-tawila tani. Very simple, very easy. You just add on alif lam to the end of the singular word. Okay? That's how you give the meaning of duality. So where is the meaning of duality coming from in all these words? The alif noon at the end. And notice the second noon has a kasra. That's all there is to making a word dual. Very simple and very easy. Plurals are a tad bit more complicated because plurals in the Arabic language can either be sound plurals where we keep the pattern intact, or it can be a broken plural where we break the pattern of the singular. So to help you understand this, think of the dual again. How did we make all those words dual? All we did was add on an alif noon. So the pattern of the singular, bayt, qalam, muslim, amma, all those patterns, they were kept intact. In plurals, we can either make a singular, a sound plural where we keep the pattern intact, or we can make a broken plural. So let's take an example of the broken plural. Qalabun means a pen. How do you pluralize this? We look in a dictionary, and in the dictionary we find aqlamun. And notice qalamun is starting with a qaf. The pattern's already broken, and then you're adding in an alif in the middle of nowhere, so the pattern is broken again. Aqlamun. Likewise, baytun means a house. You want to pluralize bu, you, tun. You broke the pattern of the singular. So broken plurals in the Arabic language are difficult to get a grasp of, and generally speaking, you'll have to access a dictionary. All right? And for now, you'll be when you teach you to access dictionaries, you'll get the grasp of this as well, bi'idhnillah. But for now, just keep in mind that broken plurals is where the pattern of the singular does not remain intact. Qalamun. We broke the pattern because we added on an alif in the beginning. Aqlamun. Baytun, we broke the pattern because we changed the fatha from the beginning to a dhamma. We changed the sukun and the ya to a dhamma. Buyutun. Notice how the pattern broke. So this is what happens in broken plurals. Now this, we're not going to learn how to make these right now. Until much later, you're not going to learn how these actually work. It's very difficult to memorize this. We're going to leave this for later. When you come across words, you open a dictionary and you learn how to make broken plurals from the dictionary. All right. Sound plurals are very simple. Keep the pattern of the singular. If it's masculine, add on a waw noon. If it's feminine, change the round ta into an alif ta. So muslimun. Notice the pattern. Muslim. What do? We add on a waw noon. Muslimuna. Notice the pattern of Muslim is still intact. Therefore, we say it is a sound plural. In dual, we add an alif noon. Muslimani. In plural, we add on waw noon, muslimuna. All right, muslimatun. We're going to make a sound feminine plural. Just take the ta and change it into an alif ta. Muslimatun means a single female woman. Muslimatun means multiple female women. But you'll notice over here, Muslim, the pattern is still intact. And even though this is difficult, we have the same concept in English, right? So it's not that difficult. Like for instance, if you pluralize student in English, how do you pluralize student in English? What do you add on? You add on an S. So the pattern of the singular still remained intact. Student, students. The pattern of the singular still remains intact. But if you're pluralizing man in the English language, it becomes men. Notice how the pattern changed. Man turned into men. All right? So because the pattern changed, that's a broken plural. So although it's difficult to get the hang of it, broken plurals at least, we have the same concept in English, so it's not difficult to understand. It's just a matter of application. And if it's overwhelming at this point, do not worry. We will apply all of this right now, bi'idhnillah. All right. So in order to make a sound masculine plural, add on a waw noon at the end. Now, once again, very simple. Muslimun, a Muslim. Try to avoid the second half, right? Put your hand on the answer section and just try answering this by yourself. Muslimun, a Muslim. How do we say multiple Muslim men? Add on waw noon. Muslimuna. Muslimuna. All right. Nasihun means an advisor. Notice how it's general. Why is it general? Because there's no alif lam, right? Had it been an nasih, it would mean the advisor. Nasihun with no alif lam means an advisor. It's nakira. It's a general word. How do we pluralize this? Add on waw noon. Hence it becomes nasihuna. All right. Talibun means a student. You want to say 3 plus students? Add on waw noon. Talibuna. Al-Muslimun. Notice how this now is specific. It means the Muslim. So how do we pluralize this? We add on waw noon. Al-Muslimuna. An-nasihu means the advisor. Once again, to pluralize, we add on waw noon. It means an-nasihuna. All right, very simple, very easy to make a sound masculine plural. If it's masculine, add on waw noon. But if it's feminine, again, it's very easy. Take that ta, that round ta, and just change it into an alif ta. All right, so muslimatun, female Muslim becomes muslimatun. 3 plus female Muslims. Again, why is it 3 plus? Because we already have a version for dual. If you want to make muslimatun dual, we say muslimatani. Okay, nasihatun means a female advisor. Pluralize, add an alif ta. Nasi hatun. 3 plus female advisors. Talibatun means a female student. How do you pluralize? Add on an alif ta. Talibatun. Muslima, al-muslimatu means the female Muslim. How do you pluralize? Take that, around that, change it for an alif ta. Al-muslimatu. The 3 plus female Muslims. An-nasihatu means the female advisor. An-nasihatu means the 3 plus female advisors. All right. Now, this is the concept, and I'm sure you've understood the concept. Application, little by little. Application is not going to happen overnight. You have to recognize the pattern, then you have to practice it. Recognize, practice. And that will take time, but you'll get the hang of it. So don't worry if it's overwhelming right now. It's okay. We're going to apply all of this, bi'idhnillah. To summarize the concepts, because I told you I want you to understand the concepts first, application will come, and once you apply, you'll understand it yourself. The concepts are as follows. Number 1, an ism, which is a word that indicates a meaning in and of itself. An ism, which is a word that indicates a meaning in and of itself. Without being attached to a tense, based on the perspective we're looking at it from. Based on the perspective, has different categories. In terms of definiteness versus indefinite, we have ma'rifa, definite word, versus nakira, indefinite word. Default is nakira, right? Rajulun, a man. Baytun, a house. Muslimatun, a Muslim woman. How do we make it ma'rifa? We add on an alif lam. When we add on an alif lam, translation wise, we're going to bring the because that's what indicates definiteness in the English language. And we're also going to drop the tanween. So rajulun, a man becomes ar-rajulu, the man. Baytun or baytan, let's take baytan with a fathatain, which means a house becomes al-bayta, the house. Now don't worry, why is it baytun? Why is it baytan? Why is it baytin? That will come later. The point to understand over here is that alif lam drops the tanween. And it specifies the word. Muslimatun means a female woman. Al-muslimatu means the female woman. Let's look ahead. Gender. In terms of gender, the ism can either be mudhakkar, masculine, default, or mu'annath, feminine. How do we make a word feminine? Either add on a round ta, or if there's an intrinsic meaning. Ummun, bintun, mother, daughter. These have intrinsic feminine meanings. Over here, we don't have to add on a round ta. If you want to make a word feminine, you can add on a round ta. Nasirun means a helper. Nasiratun means a female helper. Talibun means a student. Talibatun means a female student. So talibun is a male student. Talibatun is a female student. You can do this to a ma'rifa word as well, a specific word as well. At-talibu means the student. Add on a round ta becomes at-talibatu, the female student. Okay. Amount in the Arabic language, and ism can either be singular, dual, or plural. Notice how in English, an ism is a word is only a singular or plural. But in Arabic, we have a separate category for dual words: singular, dual, and plural. Singular is the normal version. Baytun, a house, one house. Rajulun, a man, one man. That's the normal version. To make a word dual, just add on alif nun. So baytun If I want to say two houses, I say baytani. Ar-rajulu, if I want to say the two men, I say ar-rajulani. Okay. Sound masculine plural, if you want to make a word plural now, either is going to be a broken plural or a sound plural. Broken plural, leave those for now. Broken plural, you will not worry about right now. We're going to worry about much later. Let's take a look at the sound plural instead. Sound plural is either masculine, in which case you add on a waw noon. Muslimun, a Muslim. If you want to make this three plus male Muslims, Muslimuna. All right. Talibun, a student. If I want to make this three plus male students, Talibuna. Okay. And a feminine word, if you want to pluralize it using a sound plural, you just take that round ta and you switch it into an alif ta. So muslimatun means a female Muslim. How do you feminize this? We say muslimatun. Mu'minun means a female believer, a male believer. How do you, afwan, mu'minatun means a female believer. How do you pluralize this? Mu'minatun. Very simple and very easy. Now, this is the word bank, which we will provide for the students, and it's going to be there within the slides. So everyone is required to, this will help you, bi'idhnillah. You don't have to memorize this per se, but this will help you apply this to the upcoming exercises. So keep this in mind. Not all the words you come across are here, but a good amount of words that you come across are here. If you haven't memorized these by now, make sure these are memorized. Today we have homework. So perhaps the first time in this course we have actual homework. I want everyone to take a screenshot of this page, write it out either online, write it on a piece of paper. Feel free to write it wherever you want. And I want this chart completed by the next class. This is extremely important. You have to ensure you complete this chart. And it's all right if you make mistakes. Why? Because we're going to take up the chart and we will correct the mistakes bi'idhnillah. So you'll notice over here, you have a masculine section and you have a feminine section. And within each of these, you have indefinite, all right, and you have definite. And at the same time, you have singular, dual, plural. So you have to fill in the rest of the chart. In fact, we'll do one together. So muslimatun means a female Muslim. Now we have to make it definite, feminine, singular. So how do we make this definite? We add an alif lam. Again, what's going to happen to the end of the word? The tanween will drop. Um, and then it's singular, so we just follow through the rest of the word as is. Al muslima tu. Now you have to change the translation. That's important. If you get this wrong, you're losing a mark. If you were assigning marks to this, the female Muslim. Okay, try to write it in, entirely. Now let's look at the masculine section. How do we make this masculine? So what made muslimatun and al-muslimatu feminine? What made muslimatun and al-muslimatu feminine was the round ta. So just drop the round ta. So for instance, for the masculine, ma'rifa, it's still specific. We'd say al-muslimu. The male Muslim. Okay. Whereas for the indefinite version, we would say muslimun. Again, we're still working with single words. And therefore, when we make this muslimun, it means a male Muslim. Now, I want you to make two charts because the word Muslim will follow through to every portion in the chart, right? You're going to have a word in every portion in the chart. So you make one chart using the word Muslim, and you make your second chart using at-talibuna. So in total, you're going to have two charts. This is the homework to complete. And try your best to have this done by tomorrow, bi'idhnillah. And we're going to take it up, obviously. And if there's any mistakes, no worries. We will cover it. Once again, keep the concepts in mind and apply them little by little. And it will become easy, bi'idhnillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.